Hello everyone, my name is Paul Mugen. I'm a biology teacher at Waverly Shellrock High School in Waverly, Iowa, and I would like to share with you some of the initial steps that are required in order to bring blended learning to your classroom. Let's take a look at some of the very first things that need to be considered as we begin our journey toward a blended classroom. So first, let's take a look at the idea of blended learning. We're going to bring some online materials to our face-to-face classroom. What's going to be required to get that done? First and foremost, there are going to be some foundational issues. Technology infrastructure. Do you have the wireless access that's needed? Do you have the support for the iPads, the Chromebooks, the MacBooks, whatever devices your school is using? Secondly, is it possible to lay some groundwork for community and parent buy-in? Could one do some marketing and promotion for the kinds of blending you're going to be doing in your classroom to help build the kind of buy-in that's going to be necessary to make a fully blended classroom successful? When I started blending in 2007, I really wish I would have had some individuals that I could have looked to learn from their mistakes. And I'm hoping that this brief presentation gives you a feel for some of the things I've learned along the way. Once foundational issues are dealt with, the next step is to begin with the end in mind. What are my students to learn from this blended experience? What are my objectives? What are my standards, benchmarks? What needs to be accomplished with the blended learning that I'm going to tackle? Once I establish these are the objectives that are going to be dealt with, next I would have to take a look at what's the scope of the blended learning that I intend to do. Am I going to introduce a learning activity with a video? That kind of blending might not take as significant an effort as blending for an entire unit. If I'm going to blend for an entire unit, is that going to be as a round, as a center, rotation? Is it going to be the major focus of information input? What am I going to use the blended portion, the online portion of my blended learning for? Is that going to be the cornerstone, the foundation of information input, or is it just going to be another option? And then certainly as we begin to build units, how am I going to approach my entire school year? Am I going to blend for a quarter, a semester, the entire year? So begin with the end in mind. What am I going to learn? And certainly, what's the scope of blended learning going to look like in my classroom? Certainly, an online portion of your blended learning requires an online platform. That could be as simple as embedding links in a Google document. I'm going to push a Google Doc to my students through Google Classroom, and within that document there are links to informational text, animations, simulations, and that is a very simple way to blend online and web-based information into an assignment. How deep do you want to go with the online component of your blended system? Is it time to build a website? Am I going to use Google Sites, Weebly? Am I going to build my own website from scratch? Certainly, one could use a learning management system. The Waverly Shellrock system has used Canvas. Some people have used Schoology very successfully. But there are learning management systems out there that could blend a classroom very successfully. What's that online component of your blended system going to look like? And already we're getting closer to our goal. One of the greatest things about web-based learning is digital formative assessments. Absolutely must have built in a formative assessment that guides the learner, provides immediate feedback, lets the students learn from their mistakes, lets the students learn from their failures, and provides the student with automatic contact direction for support. You've missed this question. Perhaps you'd like to look at this link in order to learn how to properly answer that question. And how could we do that with our students before blended learning? How could we have a formative assessment that gave the student direction as to where to look next before that formative assessment was digital and immediate? What a powerful tool, and blended learning uses it. We're going to have to stop and consider, how are we going to use the data from our formative assessments? How will that help me to direct learning? How will that data help me to identify kids that are struggling? How will that data help me to know when to pull students out, when to give a full class instruction if need be? What kind of data am I going to collect, and how am I going to use that data to direct learning? Once I have the infrastructure in place, once I have the online platform, and I've got a formative assessment that's going to be solid and digital and ready to use, next it's time to begin to gather the content resources. What web resources, rich web resources, can I use to provide information for my students? And all of the beautiful things that the internet has for us. Text with deep pictures, videos, simulations, animations, opportunities for discussion, asynchronous online discussions that will get everyone in your classroom involved. And certainly, as the blended learning begins to take classroom instruction out of the 8 to 4 time slot, it's going to free up classroom time. Begin to gather content resources that you can use to supplement your instruction during that freed up classroom time. If I have extra time in my classroom, because blended learning is going to give it to me, what kind of vocab strategies can I use? What kind of small group instruction can I use to augment and supplement the student's learning experience? And once I have all of those things in place, I can begin to roll out the online portion of my blended learning system and improve it each time the students approach that particular topic or unit. The goal then, to bring all the benefits of blended learning to my classroom and be prepared to engage with your learners on a whole new level, to get to know them well, to be able to assist them at their level of need. And certainly, be prepared to enjoy teaching again. Less classroom management, more relationship building, and more learning. I encourage you to start blending. I hope you have the wonderful experiences that I've had with it, and I hope it energizes your teaching again, just as it has done for me. Thank you so much. If there is any possible way that I can assist you in your blended learning journey, feel free to contact me and let me know exactly how I can help. Thank you so much. My name is Paul Mugen. My website is mugensbiologypage.com. I can be reached via email, and if there's any way I can help you, you just let me know. Good luck. Go and blend.